Hello, my name's Anthony Zopnik, and I'm going to be talking to you about a new product that I've been working on over the last couple of years, which is the Cloud Connector for Excel. And I'm going to show you how you can use it to your advantage. So the first thing that I need to explain to you is what is the Cloud Connector for Excel? Well, it's a plugin for Excel which allows you to call APIs through API function. Now, if you've watched Chad's talk, he explains to you what API function, form function is. There's plenty of tutorials out there to show you how to construct these, and I'll give you a brief recap on what API function is in a moment. But basically, it allows you to call Wolfram APIs from within Excel, which is pretty useful. Now, the other thing that we have added here is the ability to call any Wolfram Language function from within Excel as well, which without the need to use to construct APIs. Now, currently, the product only works with the Wolfram Enterprise Private Cloud, but I've been working hard in getting it to work in the Wolfram Cloud. In actual fact, it does work on the Wolfram Cloud now, but there are a few things that are undesirable security issues with the Wolfram Cloud. So it's not recommended that you use this product with the Wolfram Cloud now, but soon it will be ready to do so. So why would you want to use this product? Why would you want to use a product for Excel? Well, we're extending Excel's capability. So Excel is good at a number of things. The user interface is extremely good for non-technical people. Even technical people find it sometimes a lot better to use than Mathematica, for example. Having that two-dimensional interface can be extremely beneficial. So we extend this by allowing new functions to be written essentially within for Excel. And these are constructed from Wolfram APIs, and you deploy them, and then you can access them with Excel. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. It basically, because we're just extending Excel's capabilities, it allows you to use your already defined workflows within Excel and just, well, essentially extend them, just add to the workflow. So it doesn't disrupt your workflow. And this is the most important part, is that the language that is used within the Cloud Connector for Excel for the functions that you create, the end user, and when we say end user, we mean the Excel user, will be able to understand what's going on without having to know Wolfram language. And the good news about this as well is that the computations are done server-side. So you can have advanced computations running within Excel. If people have, their own machines which aren't very powerful and they want to do a more high-powered computation, they'll be able to do so with this product. So let me give you a recap of an API call in Wolfram Language. So here we have a function, API function. You construct it with arguments. We've got arguments x. So there's only one argument x, which is an integer, and it just does x factorial. So if I run this, it just returns to me the function, with any of the evaluated parts, and there aren't any evaluated parts here. And if we want to just test the API, we can give an association. In this case, x is 10. And what we should see is a calculation which gives 10 factorial, which is the result here. So this is all great, but this is just using Wolfram language in a Wolfram language setting. In this case, it's Mathematica. So how do we call this in Excel? Well, first of all, we can just see we've already seen what the API function looks like. And what we could do with this API is we could run cloud deploy API. And if we were to run this, we could access this. We could click on this link, and it would take us to the API, and we could call that API. But we're not going to do that now. We want to just access this API within Excel. Now, the only thing that's different for the API function to run within Excel is this parameter here, which is allowed cloud extra parameters goes to wall. So if you add that to the end, everything else remains exactly the same as the above, and we can run this, and then we can deploy it. Now, all I've given it is a name. The name is useful. It's much better than having an anonymous API, because what we have here is an anonymous API. Problem with that is it becomes very difficult to find at a later date. If I give it a name, Factorial, and I run this, what we'll have is my name, my username, which was AZ, and the name of the API, which in this case is Factorial. Now you can extend this, and you could say something like API/Factorial if you want to be more specific, so it lives in the folder API. We'll leave it like that so you can see. Now let's have a look at things in Excel. We've got our Wolfram plugin installed. I'm already signed in, and what we should be able to do now is run this API. Now we go equals Wolfram API, and then we said it was API/Factorial, and we had a parameter X, and I could say X equals 5. And we can see that 5 factorial is 120. Now, if I wanted to reference a cell, I could do that very easily as well. I could say X 10, and then just replace this 5 with C9, and run this as well, and it will give us 10 factorial. So this is really cool. So this is the simplest example that I can show you really of running an API, a Wolfram API within Excel. So let me show you some more advanced API calls. This is where things, you can start to make like applications and things and start to get things a bit more interesting. Now, first thing I want to show you is shortest tour. So the shortest tour function is really simple. We have a function called find shortest tour, and it can take, a list of entities, a list of geopositions or something like that, and it will give you a tour, or even you can even use it for a lot of just basic generic graphs. It didn't even rely on geopositions to work. But anyway, in this case, what we're doing is we are taking a country, and then we are getting the top 20 largest cities within that country, and we can see by opening up this entity box that it takes our variable country and takes the largest 20 cities. It does the find shortest tour of all those cities, and then what we're returning is a geolist plot of that tour with a list of the cities in order of which city you visit first. So this has already been pre-run. I suppose I could run it again. It doesn't hurt to do that. It will just overwrite my previous API, and now I can look at it within Excel. So I'll go into Excel, and I'll open my shortest tour. And I've already pre-made this little demonstration. So what it'll take, it tells me what it does, and I've highlighted this red box, and I should be able to put in a country like Italy, for example, and it should fill out the desired spaces. So as you can see, our tour is from Rome to Rome, and we go to all these locations, and you can see these locations here. And I could change this to France, or Germany, and we would get the tours of all of these places, which is really, really cool. That's taking a little bit longer for some reason, but that's fine. You see that an error box comes up there. Well, it's not an error box, but a box comes up there to illustrate to you that your API has been running for a certain period of time, and you can disable your APIs, cancel them, things like that, so that you don't have to wait for the evaluation to finish. So Financial data is another thing that is pretty popular use of the Wolfram language. I mean, and this is one of the benefits of the Wolfram language as a whole, not just financial data, but data. We curate as much data as physically possible. And the reason why this is useful is that not only are you buying into the language, you're buying into the data that we have, and to be able to access that within native Wolfram language. So, example, now Chad mentioned this in his talk, was the interpreter, and that's what these values are here. These are interpreter values in the API function, but we've got interpreter type financial index, and if I give a string Apple, for example, it will give me the Apple entity, the financial entity. See here, it says financial. And, in keeping, we are a non-biased company. We'll do Google, and you see it gives Alphabet Class A and Microsoft, which will give Microsoft. So this is really cool. So what we want to do is we want to create an API which does something. So with financial index. So it's going to take 3 parameters: financial index, Excel date, and Excel date, an index, a start date, and an end date. And what it's going to do is it's going to do something similar that we had before above, which it gives us a plot of that financial, the financial data. In this case, it's the volume. And it's going to also give us that data. So not only do we have a plot, we also funnel in the data. And the reason why this is useful is because, yes, Wolfram language is great for being able to create nice visualizations, but also we want the flexibility to be able to use that data within Excel. So I've just bundled this all up into a single API. And the reason why we have to use Excel date is because Excel has a weird way of, or a non-normal way of establishing what a date is, and that is the number of days since the 1st of January 1900 or something like that. So anyway, let's run this. It's in AZ financial data, and now I'll go to one of my pre-made workbooks, and I can show you that example. So I haven't filled anything in here. I've shown you the API. I didn't want to rewrite it all out, but I've got my values. So my start date could be something like 2nd of May 2011 to the 2nd of June 2011. I don't want to give too much data. And I'll just say, yeah, let's do Apple, seeing as we know that it works. That's great. And what we have is we have financial data, parameter, start date is C7, end date is C8, and index is C9. So when I run this, we should get back some information. So and this is, I'm not hiding anything behind the scenes. The shortest tour thing had a small thing hidden, but nothing too crazy. So what we have here is we have a graphical object, which is this graphic here. These two cells are essentially linked, and then we have our data here. So the good thing about this is that we could then do this plot in Excel if we wanted to, or use this data to do something in Excel. Finally, I have an example which I won't show any of the code for because it's much more complicated, but it's just to establish the kind of things that you could do with this product. So here we have like a report generator. So it's got some macros behind the scenes. So this is kind of playing, we're playing with a few things here. So we're using VBA to create a macro, and the macro calls a Wolfram API. The Wolfram API is going to take a list of stocks and an email address, and when we execute that, we're going to get a report back. And it's not going to be an Excel report. So let me just show you what I mean. So I select my data, So yeah, and this is, this VBA, well, this box here is made in VBA, and I'm going to send it to an email address, and I'm going to use CloudConnector for Excel at gmail.com, which I specifically set up for this talk. And I push submit, and what we should get is an email back, so information back saying your report will be sent to your email address shortly. Now, this is something that I created specifically, as a response. If the API is successful, then it will return to me this string. So you can start to add your own error handling, things like that. The API is actually pretty simple because all it does is it calls a report generator with these stocks. Now, what we should be able to do is go into my email, and we can see that my report is ready. It's come from my email address, antonyz@wolfram.com. And I can open this up. And we can see that we've got a portfolio, which includes all of my stocks. And it's got some bits of interactivity here to show correlations between stocks. We can see there's correlations between Amazon, Accenture, Microsoft, and the odd stocks are Xerox, IBM, Unisys, etc. And we have interactive graphs here, lots of text. And the thing is that we are now extending the capabilities of Excel by giving something that Excel wouldn't be able to produce very easily, but I produced it essentially from within Excel. So this could be an extremely powerful workflow for certain people. And by the way, if you're interested in seeing the code for this, I'm more than happy to send it to you, to send you the information, and you just have to email antonyz@gmail.com. Not antonyz@gmail.com, antonyz@wolfram.com. Okay. So what we can do is we can call general Wolfram language within Excel. So we can call any Wolfram expression within Excel. It's not as smooth and clean, my personal opinion, as using an API for the Excel user. But if you're a Mathematica user, Wolfram language user, it becomes a lot easier to be able to construct certain expressions without the need to deploy APIs. So, yeah, and it works the same as Wolfram APIs. You can use values from the spreadsheet. So let me show you what I mean. I'll open a new spreadsheet. Now I need to change my account. I need to go to our test cloud, and when I go to our test cloud, I'll sign in. And I can show you this here. Here's the sign in dialog. I told you I was signed in before. And, it's nice. It tells us I'm signed in. This is all great. And now we have the Wolfram function. So we're going to do something like, random integer. And with random integer, we're going to take a couple of parameters. So we can use the Wolfram function, and we can say random integer, and this parameter, and this parameter. And what it does is it slots these parameters within that function. So what we should have is, I use the square brackets there. I'll use another type. So we've got 5 values between 0 and 100. So I could change this to 15 and reduce it to 1 if I wanted to, and we can see how this changes. Now I may want to adjust this. So I may want to link APIs together. So, not APIs, Wolfram functions together. And this can be done very easily. So if I wanted to do another Wolfram function which did a matrix plot of these values, then I could select these values like this. We also have another function called array reference, and what array reference does is it takes your top left value of your array, and it will automatically expand out the values. And you'll see what I mean here. So if I run this, it should just give us a matrix plot of all the values. See, I only selected one value, but it shows them all. And the reason why this is really nice is now I can change the size and it will dynamically expand based on the size. And I can reduce it if I want to as well. And you can see how it updates. So I'll just show you briefly the Wolfram Toolbar. You've kind of already seen it. It's this bar here, and it has a few values, buttons that you can click. Signing in is obviously the most important. About just gives you a bit of information about the product. Preferences is useful because it tells you, where, certain bits of information, allows you to test and some other parameters. The Insert API Call button brings up a dialog which allows you to give an API name. I think I've already got some, okay, I don't have any saves, so I should be able to go to example, add to, update this, and what it does is it searches for an API and it tells you the parameters that exist. So I can just show you this over here. I want R12 to have a add to of 5 and 2, and if I insert here, you can see that it does Wolfram API of 5 and 2 and it's returned 7. There's a button to insert file paths. So if you want to use files as a parameter, you can do. Recalculate workbook. Again, that'll just recalculate everything because you may want to do that for whatever reason. If you've got a non-static result for an API, so rerunning it will change the result. And if you need to do work and you don't want to call any Wolfram APIs, you can disable them by clicking this button. So in conclusion, what I've hopefully showed you is that there's a product which is designed around the Excel user. The Excel user is someone who is non-technical and it will be able to use APIs that a developer has created for their use. Now, currently only works with the enterprise private cloud, but I'm telling you very soon it will be made available for the public cloud. So it's, if you want to register your interest, go ahead. Wolfram APIs, they require very minor changes to work within Excel. I've told you that allowed cloud extra parameters goes to all is the only thing that you need to change. What I didn't show you, but it's very simple, is, we've signed in. So if you're signed in, what it means is that you're able to control API access with authentication. This is something you can go to Chad's talk or read his notes, and he talks to you about assigning permissions and things like that. And finally, you're able to call any Wolfram expression from within Excel using the Wolfram function. Now, if you want to see find out more, here are some resources. You can go to the Cloud Connector for Excel page for the information on why you'd want to use the product. The resources page within that site has a number of things. It allows you to download the plugin, allows you to download an example spreadsheet, and a couple of other things. Also allows you to access the documentation. And here's a link to the documentation as well. Okay, great. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to hearing any feedback. Thank you.